Hello and welcome to Clock Strikes Midnight. This episode takes us to Macon County, Missouri, where we visited 3 creepy locations. First, a familiar face in the Mount Olive graveyard. Hoots, whoops, and knocks at Locust Grove Cemetery. And finally, swinging blinds and figures in the basement at Concord Church and Cemetery. Prepare for a journey into the dark. The first place we visited was Mount Olive Graveyard, just southwest of the city of Macon. It sits on top of a hill about 100 yards from the house of one of our team members. An old and supposedly haunted church once stood here, but has since been reduced to rubble. Plenty of primitive tombstones and grave markers, some dating back to the early 1800s. When we first showed up, we only saw one solar light, but as we neared the end of our visit, we saw another light on in the distance, and it drew us to this particular gravestone. What was interesting was how new the gravestone was. A fancy guitar carved into the back of it. When we came around to the front of it, we realized that it was an individual that I had known personally, though I had no idea where his final resting place was. Needless to say, I was taken aback. Were we drawn to this particular marker for a reason? Next, we traveled over to Callao, near the Sheraton River, to visit Locust Grove Cemetery. At one point, one of our team members said he felt like he had been bitten. Eventually, a mark appeared, and he was bleeding some. This was a much newer necropolis than the one we had visited before, but still plenty of old graves. We found the metal crosses particularly interesting. In the distance, we spotted an old mausoleum, and strange enough, in the name Perkins that was on it, the letter N was spelled backwards. We saw an old Mason's section with a dunce cap type marker, and then decided to make our way back to the car. While at Locust Grove, we heard strange whoops and hoots, and the audio recorder also picked those up. The knock we cannot explain. Our final visit took us to Concord Church and Cemetery. We didn't plan to go to this one, more so just happened upon it. The swinging shutter strings we cannot explain. You can clearly see that the strings hanging next to it aren't swinging at all. There was no wind outside. This is happening in multiple windows. It was disturbing, but the level of weird we witnessed here didn't really register until the day after. We didn't go inside the church, and looking back now, I think that was a good idea. It was around 1:30 a.m. when we browsed the grounds. We had a look around, and it wasn't until after I reviewed the footage that we saw the shape of a figure in the basement of the old church. Shadows playing games with the electric eye. We passed an old outhouse in the back and decided not to open it and see what was inside. Maybe next time. Though questions remain, the answers are out there. How far are you willing to go to find them?